Hello everyone and welcome back. Recently, I was able to meet the global ambassador, Gerard Garland, for Keeper's Heart Irish American Whiskey. I sat in on a seminar and he went over the 4 different whiskeys that they have right now out on the market. So in this video, he will explain each of the 4 whiskeys and the process that they use to make them. So I hope you enjoy.
Just to introduce myself really briefly, my name is Gerard Garland, and I'm from Keeper's Heart Whiskey. We're owned by a family called the O'Donoghue family, and I'll tell you all about the story about how the whiskey is made and where the idea came from. But we're going to start, because I'm Irish, with a beautiful 10-year-old Irish single malt. And so this is your right hand. If you ever know where the right hand is, go to the whiskey on your far right. The whiskey on your far right is the 10-year-old Irish single malt. And it is 10 to 14 years old. It is finished in Malaga wine casks. And Malaga wine is like a super sweet dessert wine from Andalusia in the south of Spain. They get over 200 days of sunshine a year, and slopes of the Sierra Nevada mountains fall down into the Mediterranean Sea, south facing towards Africa. You get a ton of sun, the grapes shrivel up in the wine, and it makes it syrupy, rich, fortified wine that we season our barrels with for 3 years. Then the wine is emptied out and they're shipped from Cadiz port in Andalusia, and they're in Ireland in 4 days, and they're filled with this lovely 10 to 14-year-old single malt for 8 months, about 8.5 months, and it imparts loads and layers of, if you smell it, you're going to get vanilla, because these barrels are full of vanilla, and you're going to get apricot and blush raspberry, and it's just a really attractive nose. You don't have to know anything about whiskey, and it might shock you to know it's 86 proof. It really noses like it's very, very elegant, delicate whiskey, and it won Irish Whiskey of the Year at the San Francisco Wine and Spirits competition, the Olympics of I suppose drinks in North America. It's the oldest spirit and wine competition in North America, and it's really prized by producers of whiskey, wine and spirits, because it is all blind tasted, so the people give their honest opinion about it. There's no influence about the packaging, or they don't even know what category it is. If they scored on a point system, and this one best Irish whiskey in North America. So, so what do you think? Good start? Yeah, that's great to hear. So, sorry, Tim. Yes.
Gerard, how do you feel? They have water in front of a glass of water. How do you feel about adding a drop of water?
I think they could all leave. No, there's an old Irish expression: is never water another man's whiskey, and the rest of the expression is and don't steal his wife. So there's absolutely no problem putting water into your whiskey if you feel it needs it, but you won't know that if you have never tried that whiskey before and you don't know what it's like. Not all whiskeys are the same. There's a whiskey for everybody out there, and our whiskeys are all very different. When you try them, you'll see that, because they're made up of different grains and different, ages and different influences from wood and mash bills and all that sort of stuff. There's lots of variation in it. So I would recommend, no matter what the whiskey is, the first time you try it neat. If it's a little bit overwhelming, add a few drops of water. That'll help open up the whiskey as well. It'll help release esters that are in there, flavors that will come out, more volatile compounds will be released, and you'll be able to appreciate them. But you won't know that unless you try it neat first. If you still find it a little bit punchy or overwhelming on your palate, add some more water. Then add ice. Because if you add ice straight away, like a lot of us learn what drinks we should drink and how to drink from television, from movies. You see, Scotch on the rocks with 2 cubes, people like that. And you're like, that person obviously knows what to do, and that's cool. I'll going to do that. But what it'll do is it'll numb all the flavors in the whiskey. A lot of those flavors will be suppressed. They'll be locked in by the cold temperature. That's why a lot of those, light beers are very chilled. When you get because if you drink them at room temperature, they're not great. You know, or Chilean wine. You know, Chilean wine is freezing cold. It's very nice when it's cold, but when it's at room temperature, it's not great. So it's the opposite with whiskey. Whiskey is kind of, you know, usually when they are doing the sensory analysis around whiskey, when they're nosing it, and tasting it, and creating the blends, they'll do that at room temperature. But you know, in the summer when it's really warm, I love get a nice bit of ice and pour something like the Irish and bourbon that we're going to try over it and put on a crystal orange. But again, I've learned that because I know what it tastes like and I know what I feel works for me. But I think you can drink the whiskey in any kind of vessel. You can add water to it, you can add ice to it, as long as you know that's what you like. But again, first time you try it, try it. So that's my long-winded answer on water, ice, and and please, like Tim has just asked me, ask me questions throughout this. It'll enrich it for other people. If I say something, you're like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Just please ask me and we'll get through it, no problem. So a little bit about Keeper's Heart. Keeper's Heart is owned by the O'Shaughnessy Distilling Company, and we're based in Minneapolis in Minnesota. We're in existence just a little over 4.5 years, and we built our distillery. Our distillery opened, was commissioned in September 3.5 years ago. So September 3.5 years ago, and we will be 4 years distilling and laying down whiskey in 6 months' time. So you're saying, well, how do you have a 10 to 14-year-old whiskey? Well, Brian Nation, our master distiller, came from Middleton Distillery, and he basically was able to bring his knowledge of the Irish whiskey industry to O'Shaughnessy Distilling. And we also have another investor and liquid collaborator called David Perkins. And Dave Perkins set up and was the head distiller of High West Distillery for 10 years until he sold it to Constellation Brands for $1 gazillion. Then he decided to invest in Keeper's Heart. So you've got the hugely knowledgeable, experienced craft American whiskey distiller, and you've got an Irish whiskey, you know, globally recognized master, the guy who used to make Jameson for a decade. And the two of them now work together to create these proprietary whiskies we source from Great Northern Distillery in County Louth, which is about an hour from Dublin, north of Dublin, and also from Midwest Grain Products in Indiana, which is MGP in Indiana. And MGP supply the majority of your American distilleries out there. But what's unique about it is a combination of both Irish and American whiskey. And we will have our own self-distilled whiskey, the first of which will be released in November this year. And while you're waiting for the last 3.5 years, we've had these whiskies out there. And they've grown just beyond my own expectations. I'm working with them for 18 months after spending the last 25 years in the whiskey business, 23 years in Middleton Distillery, as the lovely people were visited last year. And I decided to follow Brian over to work for the O'Shaughnessy family and Keeper's Heart whiskey. So the next whiskey that we're going to try is on your far left-hand side, and it's, as I was talking about, that Irish whiskey and American whiskey. It's actually Irish and American rye. The TTB, the Tax and Trade Bureau, would not allow us to put the word rye on the label, which is quite bizarre, because they let us put bourbon on the next one. So I really don't know what the sense of that is. But anyway, it is, if you look in our label, on the label here, you'll see it just says Irish and American, and then it says rye here. American rye whiskey. It is half American rye whiskey, a 95 rye, 5% malted barley mash bill, aged in new American oak as it must be, and then aged for 4 years. And then Irish pot still, which is 50% malted, 50% unmalted, triple copper pot distilled in Ireland, aged in reused American bourbon and Tennessee whiskey barrels for 4 to 6 years, and then that's shipped to America in a tote, or what we call an IBC, an international bulk container, and that an inert bulk container, and that's shipped all the MGP distilled rye, the pot still from Ireland, and grain whiskey, which is made from corn and a little bit of malted barley, is also then shipped from Ireland separately, 3 different whiskies, and they're married together in Minneapolis and bottled by hand, and all the products are made in Minneapolis using Indiana distilled rye and Irish distilled whiskey as well. And We are producing a rye which will be released in 2027 as well, which is a similar bill to the rye that's in here as well. So American rye, Irish whiskey, this is mid-Atlantic, it's kind of 50-50. So it's all natural colour as well. This natural colour is coming from the 50% of the whiskey that's aged in new American oak barrels. And the new American oak is full of tannin, and tannin is what gives whiskey its colour. And there's no colour addition to this apart from the natural wood colour itself, which is really interesting. And it is bottled at 86 proof. So 86 proof, and it is from a price point of view, and from it's $30.50, 49 cents, $30.49 here. So really accessible from a price point of view, and I think it's great value for what it is. So it's on your far left hand side, and it's just really approachable. You get all of those honey notes on the palate, which I find really familiar to an Irish whiskey drinker. There's a little bit of what I would describe as wood spice. It's not really the rye spice. It's really the white American oak. The total whiskey is all aged in white American oak. There's no European oak here at all. And then in the middle of the palate, you get this lovely kind of creaminess from the pot still, lovely kind of butteriness, which fades down to this cream soda, spicy rye finish. So you got all that sweetness like a cream soda finish, and then the spice from both the new American oak, and also the rye grains as well. They really manifest themselves. And so, again, the whiskey that we're distilling in our distillery, the difference would be in the triple copper pots distilled rye, and it'll all be made from Midwest grains. And the reason Minnesota is such a great place to locate a distillery is because Minneapolis exists because of Great Plains, because of the grain growing that exists there, and basically all of that grain back before the railroads was brought to Minneapolis, put on barges, and the Mississippi River. It was distributed to different places, places downriver and over eventually to places like Chicago as well. And it's got lots of water. There's aquifers under the city that exist everywhere, limestone, cavernous aquifers, and also the other reason is that there is the people that own our company are from there. They're from St. Paul, so it made sense that they were going to locate a distillery there. But Brian Nation was, as I said, was the master distiller in Jameson. Why would he go to Minneapolis? And Brian will be on the weather. I think it was minus 15 yesterday. You know, it's really it's brutal. Yeah. Yeah, but what else are you going to do in the winter? You just got to distill stuff, you know. So, and traditionally, that's what would have happened in Minneapolis. People would have worked in brewing and distilling in the winter time, and then in the spring and summertime, they would have gone out further out. They would have gone drinking, but they would have gone further out and worked in agriculture. And then in the winter, they came back into the city and would have worked in the distilling and brewing business. And so today there's a lot of breweries in Minneapolis. There's loads of distilleries as well. So, but we're quite big. We're located on University Avenue behind the Gophers Stadium, beside the University of Minnesota. And we're about 10 minutes from the airport, or Mall of America, which some of you might know. So I can see you. You could go to Mall of America and then go to a distillery as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try the Irish and bourbon that are referred to, and that is the second in from your left, so middle left. Yeah, the black and gold circle. Black and gold. But just before I tell you a little bit about the Irish and bourbon, it's self-explanatory. It's bourbon and Irish whiskey put together, but there's much more of an influence with the bourbon here. It's 2/3 bourbon, 1/3 Irish. So the Irish whiskey really is doing the job of toning down the more youthful, lively American whiskey. That wood spice, that spirit spice is toned down by the Irish whiskey, but retaining all of the toasted oak, vanilla, caramel, delicious toffee notes that you get in a bourbon. So there's also a nice spice to it as well. It's really drinkable. and it's 92 proof, but it doesn't drink like a 92 proof whiskey. It's super smooth. It's really good.
About 18. There's about 18 on the place.
It's a buck 18. Buck 18. Oh, that's a typo. That's a typo. That's a typo. The next one we're going to try is a 180. That's where's that?
I didn't make them.
Wait,
I should have looked at them.
it's 92 proof. I promise you.
I heard it's 92 proof. Yeah.
It says it here in the label. So,
So the cast is one.
it's Minneapolis Irish.
Even for 92 though, it doesn't. Yeah.
We're going to have to proofread these things the next time.
Yeah. Anyway.
All information is correct at the time of printing. It is. It's really accessible from a price point of view. I think is it $35 a bottle? And yeah, you want to check there.
Pat, what's the price there?
On the bourbon,
Yeah.
$35.99.
$35.99, so $36. $35.99. So it's still very accessible from a price point of view, and you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. And it's our most popular out of the range. Yeah, one thing is simply the word bourbon on the label really helps people to the brand. So it's very familiar. It's a brand in itself. So if you're a bourbon drinker, you're really, people do really like this whiskey. The previous whiskey tends to be people are maybe more Irish whiskey drinkers, or they like to mix their whiskey in the cocktails. Like the last whiskey was fantastic in the likes of an old fashioned or in that sort of drink. Whereas this, I love this whiskey just on its own. Like happy drink 2 or 3 drinks of this glass any day. It's a really lovely whiskey to drink. If you're grilling, just want to have a nice whiskey. It's really good. So the name Keeper's Heart is interesting because I mentioned the family who own it, and the company are called O'Shaughnessy Distilling Company. So they're a 4th generation Irish American company, but their family crest, the O'Shaughnessy's family crest, is a keep. It's a little castle where you would keep your private possessions, or you retreat to in time of strife. You get in there and kind of protect yourself from the attackers. But their family crest has a serpent underneath it, and then it's the O'Shaughnessy family motto, which is Fugit Ora. Fugit Ora. So then you've got this clock motif here. So it's the hour flies, essentially. Time flies, you cherish every moment. And basically, the clock motif, the 2 keys in a distillery in the past, the keeper was the customs and excise people, the tax people. And they were the only people with access to the raw spirit. Who is exactly awful people. Down with taxes. Less taxes, more fun. And basically, the keeper is also the barkeep as well. So central to our brand is the bartender. They're really important to us from the point of view of spreading the word about the whiskey to your local bar. And then the heart is the O'Shaughnessy's are very Irish, and sometimes you think, what does that mean? Well, they have a real connection with Ireland. They go to Ireland every year in a big family group, and they kind of go to different places, and they also own a couple of businesses in Ireland as well. So they really have a connection. They say their home is in America. They're very proud Americans, but their heart is in Ireland. And they really mean it. They're very genuine about that. And that's where the name came from. And they decided that's a great name. They came up with the name in a hotel in Cork called Hayfield Manor Hotel with Brian Aitchen, the master distiller. And they were throwing the names around, and they just said, yeah, no, that's the name, and it stuck. In fact, our distillery is called O'Shaughnessy Distillery, but nobody calls it that. Everyone calls it Keeper's Heart Distillery. So that's the name. So the brand is obviously how it resonates with people. And it's kind of different, isn't it? There's no other, I don't think there's many brands in Irish and American whiskey that have that sort of name, so it's fun. So that's where the name came from, and the idea behind the clock motif. And these bottles were designed specifically for Keeper's Heart as well, by a really good design house that designed a lot of whiskey companies bottles out there as well. and they just feel lovely in the hand on passing around. If you want to, if you want to, you know. If you notice, there's 3 employees here working for your liquor, keeping an eye on carrying the So the Irish and bourbon it's much more of a rich whiskey, isn't it? It's there's more depth of colour. There's more of a concentration of those, I suppose, American oak influences in there as well. It's really accessible. And I think, as I said, 92 proof. It doesn't drink like that at all. It doesn't really drink. Has anybody any questions that like to ask me about anything that I've discussed so far? We move on to our next whiskey. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Where did the bourbon come from?
Yeah, bourbon is from MGP in Indiana.
Okay.
So it's MGP is probably the biggest distillery in the United States, and they produce contract distilling for a ton of brands. I wouldn't name any, but many of them are well-known brands that are out there. So I think their kind of signature mash bill and rye is 95.5. So if you see anything with a 95 rye, 5% malted barley mash bill on the back of the label, you pretty much know it's an MGP proprietary. Right. Sorry, sir.
Avery might be able to explain MGP, how that
Yeah,
works.
please do. Yeah.
MGP.
Yeah.
So they're an Indiana distiller. Like you said, they do a lot of contract distillation. They've started in more recent years to kind of pick up their own label, their own brands, trying to get their own juice. I think they maybe realized we've been selling all of our whiskey and everybody else is getting a markup on it. Why not sell it ourselves? But yeah, 95.5 is their main mash bill. A little bit more like herbal, kind of peppery. Typically notes like dill, maybe like some garden sage, things like that from that herbal component. And then the rye spice definitely comes through, not so much usually as the grain, a little bit more kind of baking spices, black pepper. But bourbon, they do a whole bunch of different mash bills, and I do believe it's proprietary.
That's right. So ours is the high corn mash bill. So it's over 70% corn, and then there's a large chunk of 20% rye. And then malted barley, barley in it for the aromatic properties, right then starches, fermented sugars in the sour mash, and then they age it for 4 years with which brought up to Minneapolis. So we'll continue with the whiskies that you find tonight so far, even when we bring out our own whiskey, because they've been really successful for us. So there'll be a differentiation. The brand name will be the same, but they will be a straight bourbon, straight rye, whereas these are blends of other whiskies. Yes. Yeah, the price of the single malt is $74.95. 74. Yes. For the 10-year-old single malt. The 10-year-old. If that was euro, it would be the same price.
I see that. Cheery.
Yeah, they're again very accessible from a profile point of view.
I don't know if that's a compliment to tell someone or not.
So we're going to move on to our ultimate whiskey, but this is a high proof whiskey. It's a cask strength. So this is exactly the same whiskey that you tried in the Irish and bourbon, but the difference is this is 118 proof, so 118 proof. It is, but it does not drink like that. You would imagine it's a 96 or 100 proof. It's really, it doesn't drink like it. If you had 2 glasses of this, you certainly would know you drank a 2 by 118 proof whiskey. But when you're drinking it, it's just really easy. It's a really lovely sipper, very smooth, but much more of a concentration of that caramel, toffee, vanilla, and that wood spice on the profile, because you're not reducing it with reverse osmosis water down to 96. So it's retaining all of that character that you find in the whiskey.
I hope you all enjoyed that video and the explanations of all of the 4 Irish American whiskeys from Keeper's Heart. If you all can do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you guys can keep up to date on my latest videos, that'd be much appreciated. I also want to say thank you for watching till the end. But until next time, I'll see you later.